Hey guys, and welcome to Renderready.com. I'm your host Al Heck, and man, it's good to be back. I got a new tutorial out for you guys, and I hope you like it. We're going to talk a little bit about something called Projection Man, and Projection Man is Cinema 4D's plugin that they created specifically for Sony DreamWorks on work for Polar Express, and everyone has it and nobody uses it. It's the coolest thing in Cinema 4D. What it is camera mapping using a Photoshop file with individual layers and being able to use those individual layers on a multiple 3D objects using projection. Now, why would you do that? It's fast. So instead of spending all the time building details using materials and shaders and the added render time that goes along with that, all you now have to do is find the photograph that you want, kind of carve it up a little bit in Photoshop, and then plant it onto your 3D object, and then use real 3D lighting to kind of blend it all together. It's really cool, really phenomenal. I was inspired by an artist named Dylan Cole. A couple years ago I saw him present, and he's done work for Lord of the Rings and Superman Returns and a bunch of other things, and the matte paintings that he did were so epic. Like, I always wondered how it was done, and seeing it just blows my mind, and it was one of the things that I really had to learn desperately. So I was inspired by a video game called Silent Hill. 1, 2, 3 were epic. They were scary, they were terrifying, they were so freaking good. And I wanted to produce something really fast to show some folks. And so I found this image online of this decrepit hallway, this decrepit hospital, and I said to myself, this is the perfect place to send my parents when they get older. So I think that's enough of me introducing and talking about it. How about we get on over to the tutorial, and you guys can actually experience this and see how Projection Man works firsthand, and I really can't wait to see what you guys come up with after this. So we first start off with this picture, and this photo is relatively simple. We got a hallway going all the way down. We got a couple open vents here at the top. We got columns, and the way we need to look at this shot is in a Z-depth kind of fashion. What overlaps, we need to cut it out and then make that its own layer and fill in what's behind it, so that when we attach, let's say, this pipe to an actual 3D pipe and we move the camera, if we fill in everything behind with this roof, the parallax doesn't clip and you see like another part of a pipe underneath this new 3D pipe. Same thing with the columns. We need to make sure that anything that juts out, we edit, we change, we fix. So let me just kind of show you, and it'll probably be a little bit easier to understand. So first thing I would do is let's just take this left wall, and we'll do this left wall, and then I'll give you like a PSD that does all this. So with this left wall, we're going to start off with this column. This column just kind of juts out, right? So you want to do a quick but decent Photoshop cut of this column. And then duplicate this layer, call it left column 1. And it's really important to label everything. So that will be your left column right there. And then we're going to turn that off, and then we're going to create our wall. Now for this wall, give it a little extra space. Add a little bit more in, and then duplicate this layer and call this left wall 1. Mask that. And then in this left wall, you see how we got a bit of this column attached here? Let's get rid of that, and let's use what Adobe gave us. So we're going to select this area, go ahead and hold Shift F5 to use Content Awareness Fill, and that cleans up that whole column pretty much, and then when the column goes over it, there you go. That looks pretty cool. And then we're going to do the same thing with this back area. So go ahead and just select this, and you know what, we're going to just select, see, there's this door opening here, and we want to save that. So we'll cut this in half, like, yeah, let's just take this top piece right here, all the way to here, and then duplicate that. Left wall 2, and then mask that, and then we're going to take this section right here, duplicate, left wall 3, I'm going to take this center section. And this is all preferential on how detailed you want to get. Sometimes doing a little bit more in the beginning is pretty beneficial. Duplicate left wall 4. And then select this area. Duplicate wall 5, mask that, and let's just go ahead and get this column so I can actually just demonstrate this real quick. And we'll call this column left column 2. Now I'm just gonna kind of hide these right here. So we got our left wall 1, our right wall, which has a bit of that column right in there. So go ahead and select that. Shift 5, content aware fill. This has the column in it as well. So Shift F5. Content awareness fill. Sorry. Bam. And then this. So for this section right here, these columns were good. Yes. Okay. And let me just show you this real quick. So you see this left column. If I hide this column, I have texture from this wall that isn't the column going behind it, and this is what's going to help sell our parallax right there. And so from there you just basically fill in the rest of this entire building. So you go add this element in, these columns, this back wall, then you start over on this side with this column, then this wall, column, 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 wall, wall, and then it's the ceiling with this pipe right here. So this pipe needs to be cut out separately, and then the roof filled in. This pipe needs to be cut out separately. Then this actual roof with these openings done separately as well, and then the floor. So I kind of skipped ahead because this will take a little bit of this take quite a long time, and this is a 3D tutorial, and I already cut out a lot of these elements. The only things that I did differently was I did all the columns at the same time. But you can see if I get rid of the columns, the floor extends underneath the column using a cloner brush. You know, with the ceiling, we got a little extension on certain areas, and in the areas that you don't see the extension, you may want to go back and fill those in, because they generally tend to bite you in the butt if you don't. So, and that's real easy. just get your cloner tool or your paint tool. One thing of notice is I have this stuff called ceiling junk right there, and this is up on the ceiling. It's kind of flat down, like a wrinkled, moldy paint has just peeled over the years, and I left that down there as well, which will look pretty good. So once you have this and you can download the PSD file, let's go to Cinema and let's start doing some projection matte painting. So the first thing we're going to want to do is you want to open up Projection Man. Now Projection Man can be found in the Windows tab. Just go ahead and dock it right here. The second thing you want to do is find in the window customize commands, you're going to want to find something called the Add Doodle Frame. If you click on that, it'll bring up your doodle frame. Now, for your Photoshop file, try to keep any Photoshop file that you use for Projection Man at a 4:3 size. It could be larger than 1024. It's probably best to keep it as large as you can, and then you can adjust it as you get in. But keep it at a 4:3 size, just because when you start adjusting the perspectives with different cameras, it really messes things up. So I have this image right now. It's actually really small. It's only 893 pixels, but it's a 4:3. And keep your cinema camera at a 4:3 as well. The next thing you want to do is in Preferences, Projection Man automatically is set to luminance. We want to change this. We're going to go to Color in Alpha because we want to use lights in our scene to sell the look. We don't want to just paint. If you're directed to do it exactly the way it looks, then keep it as luminance. But I prefer, if you're going to do Projection Man, if you're going to go this length, you know, have the freedom to do whatever you want inside of it, and just add a bunch of lights if you want the luminance channel look. So with the doodle object, and we'll go down to the attributes, we're going to set our size to 1024 by 768, which is a 4:3, and we're going to load the bitmap, the PSD that we worked on. And because it's a 4:3 and we're using a 4:3 camera, there is no distortion in aspect. And then right click on the Cinema 4D tags, click on Display, and in Display we're going to click on Visibility and bring visibility down. This will allow us to do a very important thing, which is get our focal length determined. And that's basically what millimeter did they shoot this shot in. Was it a 50 millimeter? Was it a 35 millimeter? 85? You usually have to bounce between 3 or 4 of them to get this right. Or in R14, there's a way to automatically detect it by drawing your X, your Y, and your Z, and your camera will be determined from there. Once you've got this, and it's pretty easy for me to tell because I could just create a cube, or actually I'll just create a plane. And we'll stretch the size out of the plane like this, and this will kind of give me some lines to work off of. And I could see this line's running pretty parallel over here, this line's running pretty parallel over here. Now that we got this floor plane, we need to add the geometry, and this is actually pretty easy to do. This is what makes Projection Man really simple. So we're going to start here with this column, and I would bring this box up and just make sure it's sitting on the surface so we can at least see this line. Kind of scooch it back, and you can go to a top view if you'd like. Scooch it forward and just kind of line this box up to where the column should be. And this is also another good indication that your camera focal length is right if these columns look like they're correct. Yeah, this should look pretty good. I tested this before, so I set this one at a 50mm. So now that we got the floor and the column, let's go ahead and create our camera and right click Cinema 4D tags, and we are going to protect this camera. We don't want this thing to move because then it's just going to mess everything up. And then we're going to just start adding walls. So we're going to move our wall over here, shrink it down a little bit, extend it. And if you're having a hard time seeing it, which I usually bounce back between the two, I kind of bring this back up and I see, alright, I need to bring my wall at least to here because I could see the edge connecting right there. And that's where this black wall will be. And then I can bring it down again. Invisibility, make sure that looks pretty close. The great thing with Projection Man is you don't have to be perfect. And then we're just going to keep creating more cubes up and down this wall. So that's cube 2. There will be another cube right here. There's going to be this cube that goes across. And I would bring this out just a little bit so those polygons don't fight each other as we stretch this across like that. And then, you know, go to a top-down view to make sure that we're hitting this correctly. Also try to fill in any gaps that you see. Like we're going to have this gap right here between these two columns. So go ahead and create another cube. Push that back. So that's almost like a wall that hides behind these cubes. There you go. And we're going to have another column. Now we know this column is the right size. So we'll just push this down a little ways until it hits the column itself in the image. And I got some spacing here, so I'm going to stretch these to fit. And I know some of you 3D purists are like, oh god, this is going to be the ugliest 3D render, but this is how you work in Projection Man. You don't have to be precise about this. In fact, it's almost encouraged to be a little sloppy, because then you're bound to hit your mark. You're just trying to get enough cover to stretch your textures out, or get your textures on some surfaces. Let's just do that. That looks pretty good. And then we can create a back wall based on where cube 8 is. Rotate it around 90 degrees and set your back wall in the top view at the furthest point. And yeah, that looks pretty much dead on. And then we can duplicate this same exercise on the right hand side of this piece. We can, and then once you've done that, the easiest thing to do would be to create splines for your pipe. So we have this these pipes that sit over on top here, and this one actually doesn't have any yeah, this is nice. So you create the spline for this pipe that exists, and then use a circle, set it to like 10, and then use a sweetener and drop the 2 in there, and you have your pipe. And just kind of line it up to where the real pipe is. It looks like it's a little too big. You have to do a little bit of adjusting. And then as far as the ceiling goes, kind of same concept. You can use what I did was I created an arc. And then I adjusted my axis, kind of just adjusted the size of this arc so it matched these, and then created a loft nerve. Drop these 2 under there, and now you could set this all the way back to the edge over there. Set this one all the way over here, and you get a pretty good idea of how this ceiling was built. And then if you press C and you turn it into an editable object, we can now take our knife, and if you set it to loop, you can cut along the seams. So you can make sure you get I'm just going to do these 2 real quick, but a perfect hole for your extrusions. So then you just say extrude and pull that up. I'm actually going to click this doodle object off, mainly because for these lights, God, what do we call them? Recess lighting, I guess. Not recess lighting. They're fuck it. You want to delete these holes so that when we do pump light in, we get the nice light bouncing through, and then the ambient bounce from there. So this is so far what we've built with just eyeballing this hallway using the doodle object. Now there's a lot more to do, so I'm going to load up. So here we have our geometry. I kind of just filled everything in at this point. We have our roof, we have the lights on top, we have the back walls, the columns, pretty much everything we need to finish up and start doing what we really here to do, which is projection matte painting. We got our pipes up there, and we got some landscape elements that are going to be used for our dirt that we could see on the doodle object. And yeah, let's get to this. Let's do what we're here to do. Alright, this is painfully simple. First thing we need to do is go to Photoshop, and we are just going to start going layer by layer. First thing we're going to do are these columns, right? I got 1, 2, 3, 4 columns right here. And actually, let me just turn everything else off so I'm more accurate with what I'm doing. Okay, so 6 columns that I need to do. So in Cinema, I'm going to find those 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 columns. And then in this window, you're going to click Projection Man, and that's going to open this tab up. Now let me just show you this tab. Undock. And kind of explain what's going on here. So In Projection Man, you have your camera that you're looking through, which is locked. And then we have all the objects, nulls, landscapes, that are currently unassigned to any texture. Now we're going to start assigning them to certain textures. So I'm going to dock this back here. And you can see that we have those columns selected. I'm going to take those, right-click on it, and set New Camera Projection, and we're going to load a bitmap. And we're going to load the PSD file we have. And click Open. Now it's going to ask, do you want to assign the same layer set to each object? If you select multiple objects, you have your choice of individual layers sets to individual objects within that group, or all the same. For this particular instance, we want them all the same because they're all going to be columns. So go ahead and hit Yes. And we're going to choose our color channel, which is going to be, well, they call it luminance, but since we brought them in color due to preferences, we're going to choose our color and our alpha, both named column, and hit OK. This is going to bring in the columns, and it's going to project it only onto those areas, and it's only going to project the column or the layer named column in the Photoshop file. Now if you go back to the Photoshop file and you adjust this layer called columns in any way and save it, you can then watch it magically update in your 3D file and save that texture as well. You'll also notice that you can see the alpha where this box is right here. This is how you're going to get those beautiful rough edges that are really hard to do in 3D. So the one thing I would recommend to do, though, before you push too far forward, and I'm going to show you this real quick, is if we hit render right now. Okay, we have no lights in the scene. Oh, we got a sky object, don't we? No, we're good. You hit render. Yes, so you're going to have some shadows over on this side, shadows on the ceiling, just like the default shading. You're also going to notice that this scene right here, if I hit render, you're going to see this has the alpha, but this wall doesn't. So we're not getting exactly what we want here. We're getting this black box, and this confused me for a while. What we need to do is set our projection from, the front side of the normal or the back side of the normal. Set it to both. And then when you render, it's going to be transparent all the way through. Now, if you came onto this angle and looked in, you'll actually see through the box. But since we're never going to get to that point, we're only going to stay on this edge, like right here. We're going to be able to see the column kind of cut in and inevitably disappear because we have the alpha channel there. And we can move and adjust this box to fit our needs any way we want at this point and to fill it in as much as possible. So I hope that made sense. So we go back to our camera projection, we hit render. If you turn the lights off, you get this. So right now let's just keep one light on, and we're going to fill in the rest of the assets. So in our Photoshop file, we did columns. We need to do the left ceiling pipe, right? So click on your left ceiling pipe. And in Projection Man, instead of right-clicking, just take this and drag it into the underneath the projection camera, the PSD file, and this will bring up the layers. So now instead of selecting columns, we're going to select left ceiling pipe and hit OK, and set our projection to both sides of the normal. Then hit render, and you could see up here, alright, so here's our tube, and then we got the alpha that actually cuts in and gives us this crazy little wiggle. We didn't have to do any of that. That's actually all projected imagery now. which is really awesome. It's a huge time saver. So let's go ahead and do our right pipe, which has got this, you know, kind of edgy kind of look. So our right pipe, which is right there, we're going to drop that in here. Hit OK. And then do a quick render. Yep, there's our right pipe all the way in there. And then let's just start going through. I would recommend going down with your Photoshop file, not your Cinema 4D, to determine everything that needs to go in. So we got our ceiling junk. So where's our ceiling junk? These are just going to be flat planes right here. Drag that up to your PSD file. Yes, we're going to set them all to ceiling junk. Hit OK, and then set those to both. And this one isn't lined up perfectly, so we are just going to move this until it does get lined up. Alright. Kind of cool. And you hit render. Hey, we're looking pretty good right now, okay? So let's just keep moving forward. Then we add in our ceiling. And so we need to just click on our ceiling. Grab this. Add that to ceiling. Set it to both. Take a look at the render. Alright, we're moving. Our left wall. So we start off with this very close wall right here. Hit both. Hit render. Okay. So this is kind of like the lower corner area. So that would be that wall. Left wall 3 is this higher area right here. Hit render. Alright, that looks good, right? I mean, we're moving pretty quickly. We did a lot of 3D work here. Left wall 4. Do a quick render. That looks really solid. Let's see. Left wall 5 is this odd shaped one right here. So we'll drag that into place. Okay, and then we have these elements down here. And let's take a look at left wall 5. You see left wall 5 has those columns as well, all the way down to the end. And I believe that's the last one I had before I hit the back wall. Yeah, pretty much. So I'm going to step away and look at this from this angle. Just kind of zoom in. And we're just going to select all this good stuff right here. Alright. And then make sure you go back to your projection cam, because if you do this projection from there, it's going to look wrong. It's going to project at that location instead of where we need it to project back here. So grab these, hit yes, and this is left wall 5. Okay. Hit both, do a quick render. Looking pretty good. Alright, let's go ahead and add our back wall. So let's throw that in. Bam. Bam. Okay. Do a quick render. And then let's start up, let's see. We did our back wall. Alright, we got our right wall close. So this close angle right here, which is probably this one right there. Right wall close. Hit both. And then select this top right wall up here. Hit both. Perfect. Let's do a quick render. Alright, it's looking good. You could see where the line ends for the projection, but we don't care about that right now. Let's see. We got a couple things going on here. So we got this column right here, which is more than likely that right there. So we're going to take these and what did I call this? I called this right wall 2. Hit OK and project on both. And then right wall 3, which is this and this. We're going to set that to those. And then right wall in the window is going to be this stuff. And that's called right wall window. Perfect. Looking really good. Okay. And then we got these 3 walls right here, which we're just going to call right wall 4. So we're going to take those, drop those in, right wall 4, and then we got our ceiling holes up here from our PSD, and we're going to grab those, drop those in the same camera, and now we just need to select our floor. So let's go ahead and select all these landscape elements plus the floor, and we're going to drop those. In floor. Now let's go ahead and do a quick render. Check that out. We have our whole scene projected and modeled layer by layer into this Cinema 4D file. Pretty freaking awesome. So the next thing we need to do is create a new camera. Now, this is the camera we're going to use to render. We don't want to touch these. These are our projection cameras. This camera, though, is the camera we can use and, let's say, adjust this to 960 by 540, which is half 1080p. And this is the camera that I'm going to render with. And what I'm also going to do, which is similar to the other animation, is we're going to set our X at this keyframe 0, our Y at this keyframe 0. So when we actually play this animation back, now we got some movement and parallax. Now, I guess the next important thing to do would be to add lights. We can use cool things like global illumination and ambient occlusion. Now with GI, I did this at a diffuse depth of 4. That's a lot, and but you can get away with it because you don't have high degrees of polygons and bumps and specular channels or anything like that. So we're going to select this light, and let's go ahead and mess with this a little bit. We're going to set this to a spotlight, and we're just going to kind of aim it downwards. And we're going to set this right above one of our light vents right here. I'm just going to bring this up yay high. I'll probably even widen this and bring it down a little bit, and hit render real quick. And oh, before you hit render, go ahead and create a sky, because this will, for some odd reason, it makes things go faster when it comes to GI. Alright, so check that out. The light is coming in, it's hitting this, and now it's bouncing off of this, and it's bouncing again, and it's going down the hallway, which is kind of cool. It's exactly what we're looking for. But it doesn't have that dramatic feel yet. So let's go ahead and click on this light again, and we want to add some noise to it. So go ahead and set your visible light to visible, and let's take a look how that, see how that looks. Ah, so much better. It kind of smudges out some of the detail there. Yeah, that's really cool. Let's go ahead and add some noise too on the visibility. So let's see how that looks. Very cool. We got a little bit of noise working for us here. Let's see if we can get a little bit more. Yeah, you could see the noise a little more there. Okay, so we're going to take this same light right here, and we're going to duplicate it up and down this hallway. So I know I have another light vent here, and then we're going to create our third light vent right there, our fourth light vent right here, and our fifth light vent right there. Let's take a stab and see how this looks. So check this out. We got 5 lights blasting GI in here, and we're rendering at a pretty fast pace, which is really cool. Now, when we did this, there's of course going to be places that we screw up at. So there's going to be edges here where we didn't texture enough, didn't bring it up enough, and you're going to see the texture get kind of clipped. You'll really see it right here. You can go back and adjust the Photoshop file and fill those in for these particular locations. But for us, we're just going to cheat real quick, and we're going to create a cube, and we're going to stretch it out the sides of this hallway, this corridor, and we'll make it go all the way to where it includes the camera, make it editable, and delete this top, and then increase the size of this box so it basically fills in all the sides but still leaves the light alone on the top. So if I render this right now, it should fill in all the black areas that we had and hide them pretty well. So that's pretty much gone. This area's pretty much gone at this point. This area's really light. You wouldn't even notice it. If you want to go back and fill it in, be my guest. The next thing we need to do is let's go ahead and add some just illumination lights. And these lights are going to be at 50%. We're going to have a little bit of fall off to it. And these are just meant to brighten up the hallway, bring attention to certain details like this really mysterious door at the end of the walkway exists, and stuff like that. So if you hit render real quick, there we go. Now we can see the doorway down there. It's kind of showing off the walls and the edges a little bit. In fact, we could probably bring some of this light down here to give a little more detail on what's going down at this end of the hallway. Yeah, it looks pretty cool. Cool, I like that. I think that looks really nice. Then one of the cool things we can do is let's add some flickering. So we're going to create an Espresso tab. And in Espresso, we're going to grab a couple lights. Let's just grab this first light right here. And we're going to manipulate its intensity. And the way I'm going to manipulate it is with a noise. Now this noise intensity goes to 100%, right? And so we're going to need a range mapper. This range mapper is going to take inputs of 0 to 1, and it's going to output to 100, and our output range is going to be %. And then we're going to attach that to the intensity, and then I also want to get a result tab, kind of plop that in there, and then in the noise I'm going to set this only to positive. So as it's moving along, you see that it's adjusting, and we're going to mess with this. We're gonna make the amplitude like 2, the frequency 5, and let's see what happens. So you can kind of see the light right here kind of flickering in and out. Let's go 15. There you go. 2. And we can really start messing around with this and get something cool looking. So if we pause that, render that out, there we go. And it's not too intense, but it's intense enough to look really cool. Yeah, let's take this Espresso expression, just select all of it, and if you hold Alt or Control, you can duplicate it. And let's go ahead and drop this onto, let's say, light 3 as well. But let's adjust the frequency to 17 so it's not exactly the same. Yeah, so we got these two lights bouncing back and forth back there. Very cool stuff. Alright, so that's fun. Now let's add some stuff to this. So I actually found a model of a wheelchair online, and you can find it in like a Google what am I thinking of? Google warehouse. You could probably pull one up from there. I'm gonna select all the children, make them all editable, and I am just going to merge this all together. So window customization, connect, and delete. So I'm just going to connect and delete all this into one object. And then I'm going to shrink it down a little bit. I'm going to set this wheelchair on its side like it got knocked over because, you know, no one's changed the bedpans in a while. Yeah, that looks creepy right there. And then let's go ahead and create a new material. And in this material, in our content browser, let's go ahead and make the color of this a rust. So how about that rust right there? That's just disgusting. And let's create another material. We need leather. Oops. And here's a good black leather material right there. And we're going to take this and we're going to drop it onto, let's see. Yeah, you see how like, and I'm going to just exit the camera. But now we just rusted out all the wheels and stuff like that on this thing. I mean, this thing is dirty and grimy and disgusting. It's awesome. Let's see. One of these is probably the leather chair. So now it's just figuring out which one it is. So go ahead and select this. And bam, alright, there's our leather right there. And in our leather tabs, it's kind of blocky right there, so let's render that region, see what it looks like. Very cool, very fun, very fun. Alright, and then let's go ahead and add this material to this and to that. Alright, so there's our wheelchair, our disgusting wheelchair right there. And let's duplicate this a couple times. So you know, we can have this wheelchair sitting into the dust. We'll put it further back in the hallway, like someone was waiting there. Take that wheelchair and rotate it around a little bit. Set it all the way near the back of the hallway. Oh yeah, that's cool stuff. That is awesome stuff. And then do a quick render. Let's see how this looks. Alright, cool. We got some ominous stuff going on right now. And you know, if anything, I think these before we finish though, what we should probably do is add some nulls so we got an idea of depth. And I kind of make this a regular practice, where I'll take this null, create an external compositing tag, and then push it down another, push it down a little bit more, just a couple of those so I know spacing wise how deep I can go. And yeah, from here then it's all about rendering this out. So go ahead and go to like your details in your camera, and then we're going to use a plugin called Freischliff, the depth of field. And the best way I found to use it is just click on a rear blur, set the depth of the rear blur furthest away and closest away, so you get a smooth gradient going from front to back. And then yeah, there's really not much else to say other than, I usually render at 32 bits. And yeah, create a couple extra passes for your ambient occlusion and any other things you want to bring on over. And then do a quick render. Alright, so we got our files in After Effects now. So in the corridor pre-comp, we're going to go ahead and drop in our corridor image sequence, our main TIFF, and we're just going to hide these two for right now, the ambient occlusion and the shadow. And as far as the camera and the lights go, you really only need one, so I'm just going to delete all the other ones. And you can see my camera is still maintained throughout. The first thing I want to do is fix this area right here. And I believe this null is the closest one. So I'm going to create a new solid, and we're going to make it black. We'll rotate it 90 degrees, and we'll put a feather on it. Make the feather about 50. Turn it 3D, and then if you take this pick whip and hold shift, it will go to the location. The rotation needs to be adjusted. Right? No. So let's go ahead and adjust our Z and scale it down. Perfect. And then we're just going to set this right about here so that it covers this edge of this screen. And we'll duplicate this, flip it around, and let's see, when we get all the way over to here, I want this to cover that edge. So as we pan across, let's keep this over here. Perfect. Looks nice. Very cool. Alright. So really, now it's just a stylistic choice at this point of what you want to do. Me personally, I think that the wheelchairs are a little too sharp. So we're just going to go ahead and grab these wheelchairs and set it to a luma matte. And then we're going to just do a little fast blur. Give it like a 2 pixel blurriness on the actual wheelchair and the mask itself. And then from there, what I like to do is create a new adjustment layer, drop in this either Freischlift out of focus, or you can just use a fast blur. I figure if I paid for it, might as well abuse the crap out of it though. And I'm just going to add a slight adjustment layer and a mask, invert it and feather it by about 50 pixels. Let's set this to actually 3. That way the close area is a little more blurred than the areas further away. And then one of my favorite new tools is, if you create another adjustment layer, looks, Magic Bullet looks. I don't know how many of you guys played with this or have purchased it. I love it. I mean, especially when it comes to like a 32-bit image where you got so much color depth to play with. Really, the sky's the limit for you. You get so many different pre-assembled looks that you can then go in and individually adjust. So here's kind of like the flat. Here's an invasion right there. I mean, that's a pretty cool look. Mexicali looks really good. It's got that... oh boy, I can't even describe it, but it's just it's kind of freaky. You know, fuzzy and warm, not so much. Bistrosity, now that looks like a very cool look. In fact, I like that so much. We might want to keep that. And we just add a couple more things into this. How about we do a little bit of edge softness on the lens. So we'll push that to about here and bring down the blur quality, right? And then let's go ahead and add a spot exposure into the subject. In certain areas, we'll just bring up intensity wise. So one of the areas I think would need some more intensity are these lights up here. That looks good. And then, you know, we can add some more spot exposures. So we'll do one for the wall. And then, yeah, because this that column was practically non-existent without this spot exposure. And then we'll add another one. Very cool. We'll adjust the curves just a little bit. Maybe not make it as contrasty. And then, let's see. What's the last thing we can do, guys? I mean, this looks pretty epic. Oh, I know. Alright, so take a look at that. Without looks, with looks. Without looks, with looks. Such an easy fix. In fact, what I would probably do is add a little more diffusion. There we go. That's looking sexy. And then in our corridor, we got some ambient occlusion. So we're going to add a fast blur. Make it about 10. And then bring that opacity down. And this is just going to add a little bit to this scene. Not much. Here it is without. Yeah. Just a slight touch. Let's do 15. There we go. And then if there's anything else you would like to add, like I threw in some humans in there, or actually ghosts. This guy's actually pretty terrifying. Asset artwork. We can easily make him a ghost all the way in the back right there by simply connecting him to that null and then scaling him down. So let's put him at about 40% and then set him to multiply, right? Set his opacity to like 25, and then in blur, you know, we can do something like let's do a fast blur. So yeah, I mean, I think I got you to a certain point, and really it's just going into post and having some fun with this thing, bringing it to life, adding some grunge effects, adding some particles, some more, you know, effed up things, make the walls bleed, do whatever you want, have fun with it. You know, any rendition of my parents' retirement home I think is going to be better than the one I gave them. So you're more than welcome to come up with something and share it along with them. I'm sure they would greatly appreciate that. And I got some more pretty slick tutorials, things that people aren't doing, coming up in a little while. And it's definitely going to be leaning more to this photorealistic environments that, well, yeah, they just save you money. They save you money on productions, and they save you money on set and shoot and time and everything like that. You know, when they say you can do it all in the computer and CG, it's real, it's true, and this is kind of an epitome to that. So once again, this is Al Heck over at Renderready.com. Thank you for listening to me for an hour. I hope I didn't bore you too much, and I will talk to you later, man.